Beautiful people, it is a momentous goddamn day for the Build Your Gympire podcast. You're in the right place if you're a gym owner, fitness pro, box owner that is looking to grow your gym, grow your business in ways that you, your team, your community, the people you serve, and not least importantly, your bank account are going to feel absolutely awesome about. We are absolutely honored today to welcome one of my favorite humans walking our little blue ball of a planet as our first official guest, Mark Fisher.
Wow.
Yeah. We're not done yet. I'm trying to
Wow.
make you feel like pretty fucking uncomfortable. So he's an
Whoa.
international speaker, consultant, and entrepreneur, right? You could argue an international man of mystery. He's a proud alumni speaker of TEDx Broadway. He and his non-sexual life partner, Michael Keeler, a legend in his own right, founded one of the most legendary and successful gyms ever created, Mark Fisher Fitness, right there in Manhattan. Right in the heart of it all.
Right there.
MFF was listed as one of Men's Health's top 20 gyms in America and was number 312 on the Inc. 500 fastest growing companies in America list in 2015. Then in 2016, Mark and Michael founded the Business for Unicorns program, if you will, where Mark and the BFU squad help gym owners all over the world make more money, more impact, and more freedom. They also happen to throw a hell of a party. I would love to drop a plug for my experience at your events here later in the episode. The reason we're here, Mark recently launched his new book, The Little Book of Gym Marketing Secrets. I told you we were going to fumble. We're going to. The Little Book of Gym Marketing Secrets. You can pick it up absolutely free at gymmarketingsecretsbook.com. That is gymmarketingsecretsbook.com. It's a 20-30 minute read that is jam-packed. There's zero fluff. It's jam-packed with actionable tactical advice that I think frankly is going to improve the lives of gym owners at every level, right? Whether you're just starting off all the way up to your, I got multiple locations, I'm a true gympire builder, if you will. There's stuff there for everyone. If you haven't downloaded it yet, pause the episode, pull your car over, throw the kid in the crib, whatever it is, and download it now at gymmarketingsecretsbook.com. It is free there, or you can buy it on Amazon, get the paperback version, I believe, as well, if you search for the title of the book. Do it now. Your business will thank you. On a personal note, I've talked to a lot of people over the years that spent a ton of money on education and whatnot, and I'm not sure I've ever met anyone as well-read and insightful as this guy, thoughtful as this guy right here that we're getting the pleasure of talking to. So he's a fantastic person to be around, and I couldn't be more pumped to try and squeeze every ounce of Mark's juices all over our beautiful ears. Dear listeners, you are in for a treat. Mark Fisher, welcome to the show.
I can't continue this podcast. I will not be able to live up to any of that, and I reject all your claims. But good. I love you. Did you say nicotine? Do you say nicotine?
Unfortunately, yeah.
But that's like the new nootropic, right? That's the hip kids are all doing it, I think, actually.
Yeah, I would never I don't think anyone has ever described me as a hip kid, but I was on the nicotine gum train for a while there and have sort of graduated up into joining the Zenpire and the Zenachino and all the terrible things that has yeah.
Well, listen, I mean, I quite seriously, it does seem like there is a strain that is like an entrepreneur Burning Man adjacent crew. I think even Mr. Hormozy, I believe, is enjoying some nicotine now and again as a nootropic.
There you go. I mean, if he does it, it's got to be the smartest thing on planet Earth.
Here I am over here with coffee. What a loser. So I didn't have coffee this afternoon, so I'll speak a little slower to the benefit of our listeners.
So with the Zenny stuff, what I've heard, and I don't know how much is full of shit or not, what I've heard is that the overall risk is more to your, it's the heart stuff and blood pressure, et cetera. So I do check my blood pressure quite regularly, and it's staying in check and everything's good. So for now, hey, we'll keep playing with nicotine and see if that helps or doesn't. So good. See, this is good. We're having a conversation,
right.
And it's not awkward at all.
Validated. No, now you're validated. Great.
I like it.
I want to affirm you.
I like it. That's I do need to mention some of the other like good stuff that I've learned from you guys over the years. But all right, believe it or not, ladies and gents that are listening to this thing, I know Mark relatively well and have personally embarrassed myself, I think, a few times at nice dinners in his company, and now on podcasts.
Thank God.
In his company.
You've made yourself a legend.
Yeah. Now that the WWE promo is over and we can maybe avoid the psilocybin-induced New Orleans dinners conversation, let's talk about this new book.
Yeah.
right? So as I mentioned, it's super tactical, it's simple, and I think the best way possible, right? I mean that in the most complimentary way that we could possibly say it. I think it's going to make gym owners at every level work better. For those that are listening, there's a ton of stuff, right? So this is packed with. I don't know if we would call it completely soup to nuts, but I mean, man, you've got stuff from the very beginning. What data should I be tracking?
Pretty
Converting folks on the
comprehensive.
back end,
Yeah.
referrals. Yeah, I love that you dive in. Like personally, I love that you dive into the ground game, as you
Oh
call
yeah.
it. So like the
Oh yeah.
grassroots, boots on the ground
Yes.
marketing stuff.
Yes.
But what makes you say, all right, I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm gonna go throw together this gym
Yeah.
marketing book.
Well, I often think about the Jim Rohn trifecta that I consider my life. I'm always looking to teach and practice and learn and practice and teach and learn and teach and practice, right? So learning a lot about this stuff. And in particular, I think the thing that gave birth to this book was between running Mark Fisher Fitness and seeing all the things that have changed, even in the relatively short 12 years, which is not short for a gym, but in the grand scheme of business, I've seen some things change over there. And then
Yeah.
also, I had the opportunity to open up a gym in New Jersey, very different brand, non-personally branded, different market called Alloy Personal Training, which is a small group franchise. And that had a very different set of learnings. And then, of course, doing business for unicorns, my most of my day job is working with gym owners, helping them do things that will lead to more income, more impact, and more freedom. And top of that is usually get more leads and have some process to invite them to become clients. And basically what's happening, I was losing my mind because the thing that I think we all do is we try to create models out of all these things going on. And it was just this interesting moment for me where I'm like running a gym in New Jersey that's still starting up-ish. I'm helping Mark Fisher Fitness carry on its journey. I'm working with a lot of different gym owners in different markets and different models. And this was my attempt to create an overarching map for how I think about growing a gym, which on the one hand, there's a lot of different things you can do, but on the other hand, is simple in the sense that the principles aren't really going to vary, right? And frankly, most of these principles will apply to any small business.
Yeah.
And secondly, even the actual methods are not infinite. If you're running a geographically constrained brick and mortar gym, there's only so many things you can do. So what I wanted to do was create essentially like a souped up checklist. And the thing that I will offer listeners if they do go and grab their copy of this book, that there's now a new disclaimer I put in there after it was out for a little bit, is don't try to do all of these things. The value of this
Yeah.
book is it is a souped up checklist and it's going to give you everything you could do and at a high enough level that you get a nice tour of things, but hopefully with enough detail that there's still some actionable bangers, some things like you can apply and get better results. The potential trick, however, is to try to do all of these things. And in practice, you can't do all of these things in there. Some of the strategies in the book, I'm even pretty transparent in general, I think are usually not going to be a good use of time, barring some unique market, some unique opportunities, some unique skill set of the gym owner. So my hope is people can read this and essentially it can function like an audit. If they're having trouble getting leads, well, if you don't have some of the foundations in place and you don't have a website that makes sense, which your listeners I'm sure are very aware is very important. If you don't have some kind of offer that's obvious to help people get started, well, we probably need to start there. After that, then you move on to the generation of leads. And even that is, I don't want to say simple because it's hard, but in practice, there's really kind of only a few things you can do, right? You can pay for the leads. You can ask existing clients for leads if you have them. You can talk to your existing audience, or you can go out and meet strangers. That's kind of the game, right?
Yeah.
And then finally, you nurture those leads to sort of bring through the other three pieces. So usually that's some relationship building channel. Usually for most of you, again, it's not going to be that complicated. It's probably going to be emails and organic social media, maybe a Facebook group, though, depending on your market, not all gyms I think are perfect for that. Then you have to have some systems that convert the lead, which is great because now you have people know about you. You got a good website, you got a good offer. Well, once people raise their hand, say they're interested, we need to follow up with them. We need to have some system to have conversations where they try out what you're doing somehow, and then you move them into the main thing, which is become a client. And then the final section of the book is interesting. Maybe this would be one that we can put a pin in because I'm curious to dig into any piece of this that you are curious about. But to my mind, find the fundamental overarching model that is often missed is, but what do I do? Like, what do I do today? What do I do this week? How am I thinking about this on the month? Because again, you can't do all of these things. Your main constraint, if you're the average gym owner, is in a lot of situations, you only have a few hours per week sometimes to work on your marketing and sales. And as your business grows, the average gym owner that gets successful usually ramps that up. You can usually get up to 10, 20, maybe 30 hours per week. You're going to still need to spend some of your time for the typical gym overseeing your team, even if you're great at what you do and you start making a lot of money and you hire some awesome people. But I say all that to end where I began, which is you can't do all of these things. Time is going to be your constraint. So when you consider all of these things you could do, it's important that you're discerning about which of these you choose to do and you go all in on them and really stick with the winners and be willing to not spend a lot of time confusing activity with achievement and doing strategies that aren't really giving you at least any trackable fruit. And that can be hard sometimes. And maybe I have some horror stories in there at some point we can chat about, but I'll pull up there. And I'm wondering if
need some horror stories.
Yes, yeah, there's so many horror stories. Curious to hear, anything you would have to add to that or anything jumped out at you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you hit on a ton there. I think the what I could see useful is I think there are so to me, I'm a bit obsessed with the sell by chat thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when I look at the really just the gym owner landscape as a whole,
Mhm.
right? You've got folks that either, all right, I've got no budget and you're going to grow things with either, time, money, energy, maybe your
Yep,
network, right? If you throw that in there.
yep,
Um, and then you've got folks that are maybe spending money, right,
yep.
on their ads and whatnot and doing things that way. But I think regardless of which bucket or where on that continuum you sit, there's diamonds in your backyard. I think it's a
Right,
Canadian
right,
thing, right?
right,
There are
right.
diamonds in your backyard with the sell by chat.
Oh,
I
the
think.
acres of diamonds. You better believe I tell that story, GR, with some raunchy twists. And
Oh, there you
actually
go.
might perform better talk this season. The acres of diamonds.
Acres of diamonds. Well, dude, I mean, we've got a mutual buddy, James, that is like he's crushing his pre-sale right now, and we're running the ads and whatnot. But he's mentioned he reached out to me and he said, "Hey, I don't know if you're doing anything with this sell by chat stuff, but we've been converting a chunk of folks just that are engaging
Yeah.
with the ads, right? And
Yep.
it's the same concept,
Yep.
whether it's oh, I'm brand new and I'm trying to do some organic stuff, and I'm not sure how to have these conversations with folks because I'm so scared to talk to fucking strangers, whether it's in
Yeah.
person. And I'd love to
Yeah.
dive into
Yeah.
how you operationalize
Yeah.
that in a little
Totally.
bit,
Totally.
but give me some. What is sell by chat?
Yeah.
Because I
So
think
sell
this
by
is
chat. Yeah. Sell by chat is interesting because essentially it is a digital version of Go Meet Strangers. Right. So again, going back to this stupid but kind of useful model, if you leave aside your existing network of people you already know, former clients, which, by the way, if you're young in the game, you won't really have a lot of that, particularly if you just don't know a lot of people or if you've moved to a
yeah,
new market.
yeah,
But if you're really looking to generate new leads, which is to say you're looking to take people that didn't know you and make them know that you exist, you have paid acquisition, you have asking clients to introduce your friends, and you have go talk to strangers. And go talk to strangers you can do is mostly a physical strategy, right? Which is literally you're going to target parking lot with some business cards. You're talking to people online for the coffee shop. Maybe you're putting up a table at a local live event for your township. And then if you want to do it at scale, it's developing relationships with other businesses that will help you meet strangers by introducing you to their audience and their clients. Well, sell by chat is very interesting in that it is a one-on-one opportunity to develop relationships and start conversations with people you don't explicitly know. Now, the thing actually that's nice about a sell by chat, I got to say, is unlike something like a ground game where you're going to meet somebody in the target, and the only thing really that
mhm,
makes them a potential prospect is proximity.
yeah,
Now, that's a very good thing, right? Because the good news about our business is everyone has bodies. Most people would want to be more fit. So you're going to rarely have somebody that has no interest in getting more fit. Now, are they qualified for you in your gym? Maybe not. That's a different story. But ultimately, volume can make that up. And if you're just going out there to be friendly, you're going to be okay. Instagram sell by chat, which is the way most people do it, but there's a case to be made for Facebook direct message, same strategy. If you happen to have a lot of friends or your Facebook profile is explicitly professional, well, this is an even better trigger because now the signal to start this conversation is not that they just happen to be walking by the Target that's by your gym. Now, the signal more often than not is they took some action that signaled some interest or awareness of your gym. And depending on the way you approach this, I like always at least having a welcome message to anybody that follows your gym's Instagram. Because why else would you be following a gym's Instagram if you don't have some interest in the gym? And usually you run the risk if you're a bigger, well-known gym like MFF. It's why it's actually a lot harder for well-known gyms because a lot of our followers are fitness professionals.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, my gym in New Jersey, if you're following that, random gym in New Jersey, well, I assume you're a good person to start a conversation with, right? Mm-hmm. You can use other triggers, such as if they like or comment on a post. I love your hearing. It sounds like James is playing with people that are engaging with Facebook ads, even without necessarily opting in, and starting those conversations there. This is a really powerful way, right? Because these are not random people online at the coffee shop. I think you should talk to them too. But these are people that have engaged in an explicit way with content from your gym. And what a great opportunity to start a conversation. And it's interesting too, you might have some more intel about this, but there's some word on the street actually that Instagram is about to do a super crackdown on talking to anybody that's not already a follower of your gym.
Interesting.
Yet in general, I tend to focus more on followers. And there's different schools of thought, and we don't need to probably get too in the weeds as this is beyond the interest of most people listening. But if you're just thinking about a takeaway, if you have a gym Instagram, which presumably you do, or if you have an explicit Facebook page where it is explicitly about you as a fitness professional, starting conversations with people that you're already friends with or people that are following you, and just being friendly and starting with a chat open is what it's called in the biz, and some simple, easy to answer question to see if they're interested in engaging in dialogue can often drive leads, right? And it sounds like, James is doing great with this. Like, you can really begin to have a conversation because some percentage of those people, in some situations, you're going to move them all the way down and be able to make them a no pressure offer to come in and try out what you do. Now, that's not going to be everybody. You'll have some people that they're not ready for that yet. And that's okay too. Well, then it becomes a lead nurture strategy, right? So maybe it's not a lead conversion. It's still an opportunity to build a relationship and be friendly. And I'll give one more, I think, framework, one mindset that I think is useful for all of these strategies, because the thing I've really come to understand the past couple of months that shouldn't have surprised me, but if I'm being honest, it surprised me a little bit, how much inner resistance a lot of gym owners have to talking to strangers. And I think there's a lot of pieces of this. Sometimes they feel unethical about marketing and sales. They just feel like it's inherently putting pressure on people and they don't want to be part of that. Sometimes they have a little bit of social anxiety and they literally are just afraid to talk to other people that they don't know. Sometimes there's some imposter syndrome. So by putting themselves out there talking to strangers, they have to advocate for their service, and they butt up against the fact that on some level, they're not actually sure that they're that good at what they do. So all of those pieces can get in your own way, whether you're talking to a stranger in line at the coffee shop, or you're going out with business cards, or you're even starting a sell by chat. So my suggestion is be nice. Be nice. Go out there to spread joy and warmth, and have your real goal is to have a good, warm encounter. Your real goal is to practice a very useful skill, which is to be impervious to the energies of others. Greet them with unconditional positive regard. Play, have fun, delight them, connect with them. If people don't want to talk to you, they either won't, and sell by chat's easy. They won't respond, right? Yeah. And occasionally, if you do this in person, they might call the police. Well, that's okay. Then offer the police some opportunity to come into your gym, right? Make friends with the police. And truly, I think this mindset matters because part of, I think, what people are resisting against, which I understand, is if you know, and it feels like, well, my goal is to get something from them. I want to get them their money. But then part of you is like, but I don't want to do that. That feels wrong. Well, then don't make the goal, go get their money. Make the goal, I'm going to go out there and spread some delight in my community. I'm going to make friends. I'm going to build some awareness about what I do. And yeah, if I can help them with my fitness, I want to have an easy path for them. And we can chat if we like about how to operationalize that. But I think that is one potential takeaway to write down. If you're somebody that has resisted meeting strangers, which we have just established is one of the only things you can do besides pay for the strangers. Yeah. That's it, everybody. There's nothing else. Then I think that mindset frame becomes very important to adopt.
Well, I think I think you hit on some really like common mindsets and head trash, right? That we probably all like I deal with it, you know what I mean?
100%. Well,
And
this is the worst part because I think anybody that has integrity invariably has a little bit of imposter syndrome that shows up sometime. Because here's the thing: the sociopaths. We can leave that in. We won't go to that. I mean, those with love. The sociopaths, the people that whip themselves up into Tony Robbins, like, I'm going to make sure that everybody in my community trains with me because if they don't, they're going to train with someone else. And that other person is going to kill them. They're going to die. I am the only person that can save their lives. And they just whip themselves up and you're like, well, this is terrifying, right? Whereas I think probably a more honest assessment is that, yeah, it's hard to help people with their fitness. And the reality is, I think most high integrity people, let's really tell the truth and shame the devil. You're not going to help 100% of people that come to work with you.
mm-hmm.
You're not.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's going to be your fault, hopefully a small percentage, but sometimes you drop the ball, you didn't do a good job, your team didn't do a good job, you could have other helped them, but you're not perfect. And I think this is the curse of the high integrity person is they get lost on even, if you're very good at operation, it shouldn't be happening a lot, right? If that's happening 2/3 of the time, well, then we shouldn't probably talk about marketing. We should probably talk about like, what's going on in your gym? Mm-hmm. But in practice, I think that becomes an issue for a lot of people that are looking to market. They're so aware that I can't 100% guarantee this is going to work for you because you might not be the right fit. You might not be willing to do the work. And then they lack the courage of their conviction to really put themselves out there, to really make the ask for the sale. And, while I certainly wouldn't encourage one go to the opposite extreme, I think in general, if you're somebody that has a pause because you're so committed to doing good work and it troubles you that you're not batting 1,000%, holy cow, we're really kind of counting on you to take the marketing seriously because you're the exact person we need most. So anyway, go out there. If you feel afraid, do it anyway. Grow into a better version of yourself.
I think there's two really good pieces there because I think there's part of us in the like every gym owner, I'm sure, if you've got some sort of, I'm a CEO of XYZ Fitness, right, or I'm the owner of whatever, like we have all been pitched endlessly by, hey, you make the mistake. Somebody slips through your friend filter. Because at this point, we all have our little friend filters, right? Because we got done with the idea of, oh, you invite somebody as a friend, and 3 seconds later, they're saying, hey, Mark, let me tell you about why your gym is shit and how we can make you $1 bajillion in 3 seconds with no work. And that's the first message. And so I want to be very clear to the gym owners that are potentially throwing the baby out with the bathwater when they hear a sell by chat, direct message strangers, etc. We are not talking about cold DMing randos that have never engaged with you in any context whatsoever, right? We're talking about a situation, and you, unfortunately, at the, again, incredible event in Austin. I was a guest at the BFU retreat, and you did a whole talk on this sell by chat. You had people, getting leads and whatnot, literally while we were sitting there during your talk. We're not talking about engaging with folks that haven't raised their hand or made some indication of interest in engaging with you. And so for the gym owner that is concerned about, I don't want to be like the jerk offs that are messaging me every 3 seconds, cold DMing me, spamming me, etc. I don't want to be like those people. So I am throwing out this sell by chat idea. Number one, we're not doing that, right? So as you've said, we are engaging with folks that have raised their hand and indicated some level of interest, whether it's a follow or a comment on an organic post or an ad, what have you. And then as you said, I think this is a key fucking point, is be human, be friendly. Yeah. Right? The worst case scenario, if you message these folks and have a conversation, is that they say no. I guess maybe you got a story? Someone called the cops on them or some shit? Is that like a thing?
Literally. So funny story, right? Because this is all theoretical, right? I'm talking about all the theory. And they're like, oh, who are you, New York guy with your weird unicorn gym? Yeah. Well, I have this gym in New Jersey, and although there have been some things going well, one thing we really struggled with in the beginning was organic marketing, this like go talk to strangers. And to some extent, I essentially passed out of these extra curriculum courses. They should be core curriculum, but in the school of gym ownership, I passed out of them year one because MFF just had such a big network from the gate, and the referrals were so Looney Tunes, and organic Facebook marketing actually was a thing at that time. Youngins, that'll be hard for you to remember. So we didn't really do a lot of that in New York, but I knew it was a thing that you could do and you should do. And I knew that in this smaller, more suburban market, it could be very, very powerful. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to lead my team to greatness. Okay. So I bring them out there, I give them a little script. We get some business cards printed up, a really obvious, like simple, easy offer. I'm like, okay, great. So we go step out there and I'm like, oh boy, I'm getting a little bit nervous over here, right? And this is a guy that sold hair salon promotions on the streets when I first got to New York. And I'm pretty comfortable with myself. So if
Yeah.
a guy that used to stop women and stop them as they walk by and convince them to give me money on the street for hair salon promotion, if I'm feeling nervous, then I'm having even more empathy for anybody listening, or in this case, my beloved trainers who I'm bringing into the parking lot of the Stop and Shop. So I'm like, okay, we can do this, everybody. So we do quick role playing. So we go out there. I'm like, all right, everybody scatter, right? So we're going to go out and each find our spot in the parking lot. And sure enough, one of my trainers, my beloved guy, Alex, such a sweet guy, not a guy who ever cops should be called on. But I think it was like the first or maybe second woman he talked to. And he goes up to her. He's like, oh, hey there. Do you live in the area? And she's like, you can't be here. And to be fair, I wasn't there, so I don't know what she said. But I imagine it was like, you can't be here. This is illegal. How dare you? And for anybody listening, this is your worst case scenario, right? This is exactly the fear that someone's like, you don't have the right to talk to me, which again, like I get it. I don't know you, but he was just like, he was being friendly, right? So she's like, I'm calling the cops on you. Sure enough, she marches up to the Stop and Shop where there happens to be a police officer who is standing outside the Stop and Shop. Now, the story would be much cooler if the police officer came to Alex and, as I suggested, he signed him up for membership.
Yeah.
In practice, the cop placated this very angry woman and didn't even come and talk to us. So, but it is, I mean, listen, I'll say this, there is maybe a takeaway about like, you have to be thoughtful about how you do this. And this is a worst case scenario. But I think, yeah, I don't even remember how we got in the story, but I imagine there's some other takeaway. How did we get to this story? We just want to talk about cops coming to harass.
Yeah, it was like, I think it was the worst case scenario, right?
Yeah.
So the worst case scenario is someone says no and blows you off or whatever. I guess there is a worst case scenario where you get the cops called on you, which isn't going to happen if you sell by chat online.
Well, also true. Yeah, they don't do that for there too. Yeah, because sell by chat, truly, you really can make the case, particularly the way that you and I advocate to do it. And listen, I'm agnostic about this stuff, right? I'm not over here to say that my way are right or other ways are wrong, but I tend to, and it sounds like you too, lean towards for sell by chat. I want some indicator of interest. The digital space is just different, right? You can't communicate warmth in the same way. It's one thing to talk to a physical, flesh and blood stranger that happens to be in the same parking lot as your gym, just to make sure they know it exists. That's one piece. But the digital space is different. And there is something to be said for, we live in a very spammy world and we all pine for Seth Godin style, permission style marketing. So whether this person has explicitly said, hey, I definitely want to talk to you about your services, can we have a chat? Well, that might be a little too back on your heels to wait for that. But someone, again, to your point, has made some indicator of interest, whether they followed you, whether they commented on a post, they liked, they engaged in something. So this isn't totally out of blue. And further, you're not coming in with a hard sales pitch. You're just seeing if they're interested in starting a conversation. And if they're not, that's okay too.
If you're just listening, I am waving my arms at Mark. That's the fucking thing, right? You're not jumping immediately into a pitch. I think and maybe we won't give away the farm here, right? Go download the book, gymmarketingsecretsbook.com, right? And Mark walks through a very, very simple framework for how to have a conversation kind of as a human that will turn a percentage.
As a human.
Turn a percentage of folks into potential opportunities for your gym. And if you're someone like James with a massive ad budget, then you can get a higher return on that ad spend by making sure that you are engaging with those folks. If you are someone who's just starting off and you're like, I don't know where to get my first client, then you're going to have to probably do some of this shit, right? Some of the grassroots relationship building things, talking to strangers if you're not going to be able to pay for them, whether it's in person or via chat, etc. And guess what? You're not going to convert everybody. That's okay. If you're still thinking you're going to convert everybody, I got a bridge in fucking wherever the hell they say to sell you. That's not the way it works. And your goal is to turn a percentage of those people into clients and then serve the shit out of them so that then you do maybe get some, referrals and relationships, etc. Out of that. I'll make a quick note for folks that are sitting here thinking, hey, I'm not going to be able to help everyone. It's like, dude, there are a number of ways. How many different ways could we come up with to solve the problem of I'm not going to bat 1,000 with my clients. Maybe it's a risk reversal offer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like very simple, very easy. The end. If they're not happy after X period of time, maybe I'm a big fan of the conditional and unconditional guarantees. We don't have to get into that. But if they're not happy over X period of time, refund them. And then
Yeah.
guess what? The lion's share of folks, if you do a good job, are probably going to stay, probably going to pay, probably going to tell their friends about you, all those fun things. And you're going to miss out on fucking, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take,
Yes.
jerk
Yes.
off. Like take some shots or sit on your ass and make no money. Right. That's an option too.
That's your
I guess.
option. That's what you can
Right?
decide. I think we know what you're going to decide, faithful
Yeah.
general listener.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. So you mentioned, I've been a fanboy of yours maybe for a long time. Right. And you mentioned some of the craziness that happened with MFF, but I do have some, I know that's some like, again, some tactical things with the sell by chat. I'm a little bit of a nerd on some of the marketing concept stuff. And so I still remember the first time someone told me about MFF. So I was at, because if the audience is still like the audience that I think our audience kind of skews to, right? It's probably closer to this like old mastermind we were a part of. It was more like the hard ass, like I'm strength conditioning, I'm a big, trainer or whatever. Yeah. And one of the guys like, yeah, I think, just visited this Mark Fisher guy. Like you should check it out. It's like, all right, let me go. And my initial reaction, because this is the old site. So this is the old site with like, I think you had a unicorn.
Yeah, I think I was like naked with the unicorn
headset,
on
essentially naked, maybe a golden Speedo. Totally don't have it saved on my phone. It's not part of the Spank Bank, right? But my initial reaction is like, what a fucking weirdo. And before I could finish the sentence, the marketing nerd in me is like diving into every little corner of the website. And I remember like everything down to the membership pause and cancellation forms, right? Everything was just in perfect alignment for what you guys were doing.
Yes.
And so because that's an example. This is not me saying, hey, if you go stock Mark stuff, and I don't think the dildo stuff is up there anymore, right? Like, no, maybe we shouldn't all be putting dildos on our squat racks. It's probably not going to work the same.
Maybe you want to consider that, or maybe we all should. I don't know.
Yeah, it's possible.
Let us know, listeners.
But you guys clearly landed on this like really incredible message market match. When did you decide to let the freak flag fly? Was that from the beginning? Like, where did that come up?
Yeah, it was pretty early. It's interesting because one thing that worked for me, I think there were a couple of things. I think the first was I was very clear by the time I opened up my gym that Mike Boyle was not going to become my client. He was never going to give me money and come and train with me. And I had a very specific moment after years of being really steeped in the best resources that I could find for very serious strength and conditioning and program design and coaching and cueing and all of that. And I knew that the thing that I was making was for my friends. And it's interesting. You don't, I think you still see some of this. Actually, it's now that I've gotten back more to client-facing work, I'm actually surprised how much of there is still. Some gym owners are creating a thing that's reflective of what they like and what they think is cool and what they hope that their industry friends would think was cool. And I was fortunate in that I didn't fall into that trap just because it was so obvious to me these people were going to not be interested in what I had to offer. So really from the beginning, and in fact, even the very first time a lot of people in the industry even found out about Mark Fisher Fitness was before Mark Fisher Fitness was a gym, before there was anybody but me. I think it would have been the summer of 2010, long time ago. I filmed some very weird videos. And I had already knew some people at that point. The fitness industry, people are pretty cool. They're pretty open. They're pretty accessible. So I sent out an email of these weird videos to some of the like Perform Better presenter crew.
Yeah.
And I remember being scared doing that. I remember like the moment before I hit send being like, what am I doing? Am I just like lighting my nascent career on fire? And at this point, the stakes were a little bit different. I was still focused. I think maybe it's worth considering perhaps the fact I was still pursuing acting somewhat seriously at that time. It was part of it too. There was less stakes. So it was also like, I don't know, who cares what anybody thinks? I think it's funny. And as it happens, I got a lot of good feedback from even those mentor types that didn't think they thought it was weird, but they laughed at it, right? And I think it was also clear I knew what I was talking about. And then from there, I think the other thing that happened practically was I always had a number of bits that I would do when I'm teaching clients, right? So anybody listening to this, if you've been a personal trainer, you have your bits, the things that you say to maybe analogies, metaphors. And I was always playing with the game, particularly once I read Chip and Dan Heath's Made to Stick. I was playing with a game of how colorful, how tactile can I make these images, right? So instead of like jumping to land soft, I'd say pretending you're jumping on the faces of newborn babies on delicate newborn babies, just want to land daintily on their faces. And that was always a piece, I think, of my personal training. But personal training is really about, I think, meeting the person where they're at because it's one-on-one. You can do that. So they always got the version of me that was authentic, but I sensed I could most connect with them. And I was self-aware at this point in my life and my career. And I think I probably still do this to some extent, but I'm looking for how do I get in with this person? How do I connect with them? What do they like? And this can take the shape of mirroring. This can take the shape of what topics I bring up. This can take the shape of looking for the threads of the things we share interest in, right? So that personal trainer, Mark, was zany because Mark is zany, but he wasn't always that right outside the gate because sometimes you got more professorial Mark, sometimes you got party boy Mark, sometimes you got musical theater boy Mark. When I started teaching classes, that in many ways what gave birth to the brand of Mark Fisher Fitness. Because when you're teaching a class, you can't do that. You have to be this heightened version of yourself. And I think to answer your question, was it all out the gate? I think sort of. But in practice, the other thing that happened was as somebody that I don't know. I like to think I'm funny. Somebody that likes to make jokes.
Definitely not.
Who's drafting off of the feedback of the audience, so to speak. And the first 6 months to a year, essentially, I just kept pushing it, right? And it just became a game of how far can I push this? And this was an audience of, New Yorkers and theater people. They weren't really going to be shocked by anything I did. So like a misbehaving child, I pushed it harder and harder. Michael Keeler came on board very early. And one of his roles, for those who don't know, he's my business partner in Mark Fisher Fitness and Biz for Unicorns. Part of his role was starting to codify the things that I was doing, right? And then when he came on, when we think about what the brand was, particularly in those days, and I should note, things have softened at this point, part because people are older, partly because it's a different time. I think the bigger issues, people are just older. And frankly, this team is not as gonzo. The original team were some authentically gonzo people, and you can't really fake that funk. So anyway, that's, I think, a little bit of the origin story of the brand. And then when Keeler came in, he really understood design. So in the old roles, we used to say, I did the words, he did the design and the pictures. Like he would choose fonts, colors, graphics, and it looked really cool. He just had a really good eye, and which I didn't have much interest in that. And then for my part, I wrote all the words. I wrote the blogs, I wrote the copy, I wrote any of the marketing material. So I think that's a little bit of how Mark Fisher Fitness was born. And then, of course, it evolved over several years, right? Because that was an ongoing art, particularly at that time. How do we balance what is authentic to Mark versus like what anybody else is going to be able to do that's authentic? What is, for instance, a shtick that is Mark's shtick that he does, like one of his jokes, versus what are we going to actually standardize and put in like an employee manual and say, we all say tickle the dragon's balls, but don't get cum in your eye. We all say, oop, you didn't say that. I have to, and that all, as you might imagine, was particularly at that time when things were very far, was a constant tension in the business. And to this day still is a tension. People are like, yeah, the value proposition is ridiculous humans. You guys aren't being weird enough. And they're not wrong all the time, right? Like it is a little bit of an art because sometimes that trainer just does like a good class and just doesn't feel very MFF-y. And even though it's a good class, it's just not really living up to what the client maybe thought they would. But then you find yourself again, these like kind of perverse situations where it's like, oh, so-and-so, I'm going to write you up. You're missing your TGI flair. I need you to curse more. I don't think I've heard a semen reference from you today. It's going to be 2 demerits. I'm not going to give you a raise. So you got in this sort of weird art project thing. How do we keep it organic and artsy, but make it systemized? And to be honest, I don't know that we ever fully solve that. And I think I chalk it up to just, this isn't, as much as I want to make business science all the time, some of this is art, right? And there's going to be some subjectivity, and I'm okay for my personal taste of the business that I want, which I think you're picking up on. Listeners probably know if they've seen it. I'd rather it feel a little messier and feel a little homemade and feel human than be super clean and super polished, but corporate and businessy and a business that I kind of can't get my arms around.
Yeah. So I think, and I could be misreading this, but I feel like at different times you have maybe underplayed the transference of MFF to other businesses and how you guys grew MFF and whatnot to some of this marketing stuff.
Mhm.
And I think there's, like you mentioned, a couple of nuggets there that I think even the most buttoned up, like go to the complete opposite side of the continuum. Now, do I think that, the hardcore powerlifting crowd is maybe the best, addressable market for the average gym owner? Like probably not. But you mentioned a few things. And, number one, meeting the client where they're at,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So you met your
Yeah.
population where they were at in their language, in language that spoke to them. You've got your own kind of insider verbiage and so on and so forth. You knew that Mike Boyle wasn't going to
No,
become a client of yours,
sadly.
right? I think it's
Maybe he
one of
will
the
still, Mike. If you're listening, you could say you're
it's
welcome. You're
there's a
welcome anytime.
possibility.
I'll give you a
Uh,
discount. You
yeah,
alone.
but it's you knew who you were making MFF for,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I think I've said it. I think it's one of the biggest mistakes that gym owners will make in terms of content, marketing, et cetera, is they do the stuff that maybe they're going to think is cool, or they do the
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
that their trainer buddies is going to think is cool. And you were doing what your
Yeah.
target market was going to resonate with,
Yeah.
which I think is
Yeah.
valuable, whether you're Alloy over
Yep.
40 personal training,
Yeah.
do the stuff that resonates with that
Yeah.
market,
Yeah.
or MFF. I think it's
I
you know,
I think that's totally it because I think, it's interesting. People talk about the avatar a lot, right? Which is something we also cover in the book. And they often refer to Mark Fisher Fitness as having a very clear avatar. And that's true, right? And I sometimes wonder if people maybe draw the wrong lesson from MFF because for a geographically constrained brick and mortar that's not in Midtown Manhattan, you're not going to be able to be quite that specific. So
right.
it's not, I'm not necessarily saying that the core thing is you dial in on this one absolute person and you just polarize and you make everyone else hate it. Because in a given market, you're not necessarily really going to be able to make the niche that small. The
Right.
bigger and more common mistake I see is exactly what you said is the gym owner, and this is the cliche one, kettlebell guys, right? Like it's settled down a little bit. The cliche was the kettlebell guys or the PRI guys or whatever the thing is that rises to almost religious like level of dogma where like, I love this so much. This changed my life. I cannot think about anything but kettlebells. I get up in the morning, I read about kettlebells. It's the weekend. Now I can read Pavel books. Oh, I have the cert coming up in a couple weeks. Kettlebells are amazing. I love kettlebells. I love them, love them, love them. I love to teach about kettlebells. Some of my clients, oh, they love it too. See, my clients say they love it. My clients say they love it because they get a handful of clients that they do indoctrinate and also are
Mhm.
passionate about it. But in practice, that's not always a big enough number of people in a given market for you to really have a viable business, right? So it's not, yes, it is dial in on one person to be clear. It's not that I'm not advocating for that. I just want to highlight that the bigger mistake I see is that the gym is focused in many cases on what the owner thinks is cool and interesting, that there's just not enough people that are that interested in what the owner thinks is cool or interesting because the general population client that most gym owners are looking to work with, they're not, I'm looking for a place that will teach me about the process of kettlebells, right? Their goals are just both more specific and simpler than that. It's like I'm looking to feel more energy. I had a scary visit with a doctor. Now I'm stressed because he tells me I have to get on these medications and I really don't want to. And it's making me feel a lot of things about mortality because one of my parents died last year. And also my jeans, the pair I keep in the back of the closet are not fitting the way I want it. And I feel a little bit embarrassed that I care about because at this point I'm old enough, I shouldn't even care about the way I look, but I really do. And I also have this beach vacation coming up. So I do want to lose weight, and that is a kind of out of my butt, but it's that level of thinking about what's actually going in the client's head is why I always joke that I was like uniquely well prepared by getting a Bachelor of Fine Arts in the musical theater, because there is a lot to say, I think, about the link between acting and marketing. Right. And I think that that's the
Mhm.
game. It's not about necessarily what you want. And I'm not saying there's no space for that because I'm not suggesting you be disingenuous. I think obviously, me of all people will not say don't bring you into the business.
Sure.
I'm just saying you're bringing yourself into the business in service of a specific
Yes.
type of community and then building everything around that person, what they want, what they're afraid of, what their dreams are, what their nightmares are about what's going to happen if they don't achieve results. And again, there's a lot that goes into it, but I think that's the principle we're looking to hew towards.
Yeah. What I think I'm picking up on is you were listening to your market,
Yeah.
right? You were
Yep.
listening to your market. You're
Yep.
letting your personality fly in service of said market, and then creating alignment
Yep.
around
Yep.
that market,
Yep.
right? And gosh, that's good. That's good marketing. That's what it is. You're looking at the data and you're making adjustments based on the freaking data versus being blind to it and saying, "Oh, no one's signing up. I've had three clients. I've tried to be a personal trainer for 3 years. Maybe people aren't interested in the things I've been saying, right?
Yeah.
You're not pausing to take that thought. We're just continuing to beat our head against the whatever the kettlebell wall, right? I guess is as
Yeah.
you've said.
And that's like,
Um,
I'll say something wildly provocative, and that's okay. And maybe you just shouldn't own a gym,
yeah,
right? You
yeah,
should mean just keep it a hobby. You're like, I love it so much. I don't really care what they like about. I actually kind of low key judge them and roll their eyes when they talk about things because they don't understand this is a school of strength. Like, okay, that's cool. Have a school of strength. Like that's it. You should
yeah,
totally do that. I'm not here to
yeah.
say that's wrong. I'm just here to say if the goal is to impact people, we just need to have space for what the people you're serving care about.
Oh, that's a rabbit hole for a whole other episode, isn't it? The freaking uh yeah, I want this and that. Well, sometimes
Yeah,
this
I
doesn't
know.
match up with
That's like
that.
the life coaching episode we do.
Like
Yes,
that
it's
well. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No kidding. Good stuff. All right. Let's see. I might try to hit you with some community questions.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm gonna be rapid
Yeah,
fire.
yeah. I feel like we already hit the biggest mistakes you see gym owners making with their marketing. Did we? Do you have
I
something else you'd
I
like to add
I
there?
think so. I mean, like my like go-to ones are a website headline that doesn't, we talked about this, but the website headline that doesn't speak to the actual benefits the client wants in the words they use, a website that doesn't have a clear call to action that's super obvious that people have to scroll or can't find. Other common mistakes are not organizing your database of all the people that already know and like and trust you so you can speak to them on a regular basis and make them offers. Common mistake is not having a ground game strategy, which we talked about, some way of getting people to know you exist. Because if it's not paid, if you don't already know them, there's nothing else left. That we need that. And then the final one, of course, that we both know and see is not having a good follow up system or following up very tepidly, being afeared that we are annoying the very same people that gave us their name, phone number, and email, asking for our help. And I say with love, I'm giggling. If you're listening to this, I don't want you to feel like triggered. That is not like a laugh of judgment. That is a laugh of like love and bemusement, and a belief in your excellence.
All right, we're gonna change gears a little bit. So maybe one of our mutual friends might have asked about this. What are your thoughts on psychedelics to enhance leadership?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they can serve their place. I think listen, psychedelics are certainly been a very, I think, important part of my life journey. And yeah, I think it's awesome that part of the cultural zeitgeist is such that this is so out in the open now, and that it's almost weirder now for someone to not use psychedelics. And
Oh,
that is very interesting because that wasn't the case 10 years ago. And I was using psychedelics 10 years ago. I don't mind saying. Um, and I think How to Change Your Mind, the Michael Pollan book, if not familiar, I think is a very cogent history of how we got to where we got around the culture around psychedelics. My assumption is we're going to see some regression to the mean of a lot of these studies. My assumption is it will take we'll have hopefully at some point more consideration for the potential downstream effects, because I don't know that psychedelics are universally a great thing that everybody should do. I'm not an advocate that everybody should actually take them, even though it seems that that's what's happening. I think, depending on how you're doing it, of course, matters, right? Are you taking the woods by yourself, which, could be a totally great way to go, or are you doing it in some sort of clinical, intentional, or is this like a ketamine assisted therapy session? So I think it is a great tool. I do not believe it is the only tool. And I think we all have many locks and many chains that we're in the process of liberating ourselves and others from. And I think it is a useful key for many locks, if not the key.
that is the most Mark Fisher answer I could have
There you
expected.
go. There you go. Well, you're asking
Fantastic.
about psychedelics. You're going to get a Mark Fisher up in your ear.
Yeah, well done. If you could go back in time to before
Mm.
you opened your alloy, what would you do differently for all things
Oh
Alloy
boy.
before and
Yeah,
after opening?
yep. Yeah, great question. So, I mean, I think the core thing there was I, as expected, there was a lot of things I didn't quite know that I didn't know when it comes to really putting in that foundation in the beginning, particularly with a greener team. Particularly, this was the first time I was doing a project with my business partner on that project, Greg. I think in general, the pre-sale did not go the way we wanted, in part because we probably didn't make the right choices of who we brought on. That was a big piece of it. But in practice, I think we could have had better results if we just had better systems for really turning things into daily and weekly checklists. And I think that was the biggest thing that I would do different is I would have created more daily and weekly checklists. Now, to be fair, it's hard because hindsight's 2020. I don't know that I would have known what ones I needed the way that now that business, although candidly it's not where we want to be at financially, feels very much like a well-oiled machine. It feels like all the aces in their places, the things are happening. On the rare occasion they're not happening, we are figuring out where it's a system issue or where it's a person just didn't do the thing properly, a human error issue. And in the beginning, it just felt a lot like chaos. Right. And, I don't put that blame on anybody other than me. I was frankly also not as involved in the beginning of it, in part because that was the arrangement. But in retrospect, I also think that was maybe a second thing I'll add, which relates to the first one, is I would have been way more involved throughout that whole process and really working to manage the team on an hourly basis if that's what's needed, because everything was new, and I think even if we'd had people came in with a lot of experience running this type of business, there's just a lot of structures that put in place when you're in a startup phase. So overall, my plan is to learn that lesson well for future gyms or businesses of any kind. Yeah.
Sure. I love it. Love it. Love it. Well, we're getting up to our stop time here. Appreciate the hell out of you, Mark. I think there's a ton of
Pleasure.
stuff here for gym owners to sink their teeth into. Again, if you haven't done it yet, go pick up Mark's book. It is free, gymmarketingsecretsbook.com. He unpacks the sell by chat thing in a lot more detail than we have today. Get involved in Mark's universe. You will never be you will never regret spending more time with this human that on the screen currently is above me. I've been to their BFU retreats. They're incredible events. Mark's done a talk at a mastermind that we put together ages ago.
Yeah.
He always brings the house down, and you will not regret spending more time with this gentleman right here. Go get the book, gymmarketingsecrets.com. Mark, appreciate the hell out of you. Hopefully we'll
Appreciate you,
have you on
buddy.
again soon.
Indeed. I'm excited to smash your interview guest, Hyman.
There we go.